All right, Algebra 1 students, we want to look at Unit 2, Lesson 24, Solutions to Systems of Linear Inequalities in Two Variables. All right, we have three goals. They're kind of lengthy, so pause if necessary to get them written down. I'm going to take you through them now. I can write a system of inequalities to describe a situation, find the solution by graphing, and interpret points in the solution. So this is basically putting everything together from the past, where you write a system of inequalities. So you have two inequalities. You would graph them using Desmos or by hand, whatever works, and then be able to find where the shaded portions are, where they overlap, and kind of using that to identify what those solutions are. I know what is meant by the solutions to a system of inequalities and can describe the graphs that represent the solutions. So this is really looking at the solutions to a system are where graphs overlap. When given descriptions and graphs that represent two different constraints, I can find values that satisfy each constraint individually and values that satisfy both constraints at once. So when you look at them, you can identify one of the inequalities, here are the solutions. In another inequality, here are the solutions, and then here are the solutions they share. One thing to think about is in the past, in middle school, you probably used a Venn diagram. So we're talking about that overlap. What fits in both circles? That's what we're looking at. All right, so our two new vocabulary words are solutions to systems of inequalities, all pairs of values that make the inequalities in a system true. System of inequalities, two or more inequalities that represent the constraints in the same situation. So as you write down these vocabulary words, this picture is going to be important. The black are axes. So we have our x-axis and our y-axis. Then we have an orange inequality and a purplish inequality. What you've got is you essentially have the purple inequality, the orange inequality, and then where they overlap, where they come together. This is where our solutions lie. So the whole thing is our system of inequalities, but then where they overlap, that's where our solutions are. All right, so our warm-up is just a riddle that you're going to create multiple equations for and then solve the equations. So I am thinking of two numbers that add up to 5.678. So there's our first thing. We want something that adds up to 5.678. The difference between them is 9.876. So when you subtract, remember difference is talking about subtraction, adding is just straight adding there. What are the two numbers? So name any pair of numbers whose sum is 5.678. So come up with two numbers that when you add them, you get this. Name any pair of numbers whose difference is 9.876. So you need to come up with two numbers that when you subtract, this is what you get. Okay? The riddle can be represented with two equations. We want to write those equations. So think about what this first line, how you can turn that into an equation. Then think of how you can turn the second line into an equation. You're going to want to use variables. It doesn't matter what they are, but x and y work really well. Then I want you to solve the riddle and explain your thinking. You could use graphing, you could use substitution, elimination, whatever you think is best to solve this system. All right, bring that to class tomorrow. It's going to start our discussion. Thanks.